They called them the Wolves of the Pacific, and for good reason. American submarines in World War II didn't just fight the Japanese Navy, they strangled an entire empire. By the time the war ended, these underwater predators had sunk over 300 enemy warships and destroyed 5.3 million tons of shipping. That's 55% of all Japanese vessels lost in the entire war. But here's the insane part. They did it with less than 2% of the US Navy's personnel. This is the story of how American submariners revolutionized naval warfare and brought Japan to its knees. When World War II began, American submarines were plagued with problems. Their torpedoes ran too deep or simply didn't explode. Commanders were cautious, almost timid. But by 1943, everything changed. The torpedo problems were fixed, and a new breed of aggressive commanders took charge. Men like Dudley Mush Morton of the USS Wahoo and Richard O'Kane, who would later command the USS Tang. These weren't your typical naval officers. They were hunters, and they were about to turn the Pacific into a killing field. The strategy was brutal in its simplicity. Japan was an island nation that depended entirely on imported resources. Oil from the Dutch East Indies, rubber from Malaya, steel from China. Everything had to travel by sea. American codebreakers were reading Japanese naval communications, giving submarine commanders exact sailing dates, routes, and speeds of enemy convoys. The submarines would lie in wait, silent and invisible, then strike without warning. But the Americans didn't stop at individual attacks. They adapted the German Wolfpack tactic for the Pacific. Admiral Ernest King ordered the formation of coordinated submarine groups in March 1943. Unlike lone wolves, these packs of 3 to 6 submarines would work together, surrounding convoys from multiple angles and attacking in devastating waves. Research showed that a 3-boat Wolfpack could sink 40% more ships than 3 submarines operating alone. The Japanese were completely unprepared. Their anti-submarine warfare was shockingly inadequate. They had inferior depth charges, underdeveloped tactics, and their convoy escorts were poorly trained. Even worse, they didn't prioritize protecting merchant shipping until it was far too late. By 1944, when the Imperial Army finally realized the Pacific Front was serious and tried to ship 12 divisions from China, American submarines were waiting. Convoy after convoy was massacred. The USS Wahoo became legendary under Mush Morton's command. On one patrol alone, Morton's crew sank more enemy ships than any other single patrol in the war. His executive officer, Richard O'Kane, learned everything from Morton before taking command of the USS Tang in 1943. O'Kane would become the most successful submarine commander in American history, sinking 31 ships and rescuing 22 downed airmen. He earned the Medal of Honor, 3 Navy Crosses, and 3 Silver Stars. But this success came at a terrible price. The submarine service suffered the highest casualty rate of any American military branch in World War II. Out of 16,000 submariners, 3,506 never came home. That's a 22% fatality rate. 52 submarines were lost, including the Wahoo, which was sunk with all 79 hands in October 1943. The Tang met a tragic end too, sunk by its own malfunctioning torpedo on its 5th patrol. Only 9 crew members survived, including O'Kane, who spent the rest of the war in a Japanese POW camp. By 1945, American submarines had virtually nothing left to sink. Japan's merchant fleet was destroyed. The empire was cut off from oil, food, and raw materials. Industries ground to a halt. The naval blockade was so complete that some historians argue the submarines alone could have forced Japan's surrender even without the atomic bombs. For every American submariner who died, 28 Japanese soldiers perished. The Wolves of the Pacific had changed naval warfare forever, proving that a small elite force with the right technology and tactics could bring a superpower to its knees.